Welcome, ZASLOW Show 2.0. It is a Monday, the 2nd of October. Good to have you aboard. We are part of the Believe Podcast Network. And of course, everything ZASLOW Show 2.0 is brought to us by Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys. 800-747-FREE, 800-747-3733. If you've been involved in any kind of an accident, motorcycle, boating, hit and run, slip and fall. Hey, a slip and fall accident can leave you with some serious injuries, excessive medical bills, the inability to work. If your slip and fall occurred due to a hazard that the property's owner or management knew about and failed to correct, you may be able to pursue legal action against that person or business. So I send you to where you're going to be treated like family the same way I've been since the very beginning of ZASLOW Show 2.0. Anidjar and Levine Accident Attorneys, 800-747-FREE. That's 800-747-3733. We got a lot to get to here. It's a Monday. A lot happened here sports-wise in South Florida. Some of it was not so good. Some of it was very good. But some of it was not so good. We got a lot of football to catch up on. Obviously, we have our NFL rundown coming up. And of course, with football being back, Bet Online, your number one information source for all your sports wagering info with all the up-to-minute stats, news, scores, matchup breakdowns. Get the latest game odds, the spreads, the totals from your NFL and college football games at your fingertips with Bet Online's real-time updates on stats, news, and odds. From the start of the season all the way through the college football playoff and the Super Bowl, Bet Online gives you access to the best promotions and contests available anywhere online. Head to the Bet Online website today or use your mobile device to get in on the action. Remember, use the promo code BELIEVE, B-L-E-A-V, BELIEVE, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online, where the game starts. So, we had a big weekend. I told you all the big games and the not big games last week, and it came through. There was a lot that happened here, and there's a lot that's going to continue to happen over the next few days. Now, I should tell you right now as we're doing this, Miami Heat Media Day is going on. I'm obviously not there. I'm here. I'm doing the show. I'm doing ZASLOW Show 2.0, so we'll be able to react to a lot of the stuff that comes out of Miami Heat Media Day on tomorrow's show. You're listening to ZASLOW Show 2.0 right now. Then you can go and you can check out a bunch of the stuff that was said today. You know, we're going to be wondering, hey, what does Pat Riley say about the Lillard stuff? Does he get into it all? Jimmy Butler, if you haven't seen the pictures yet, he's already shown up. He's got like an emo look. He's got, I'm being serious here. His hair is flattened. He's got eyebrow rings, lip rings, and a nose ring. Swear to God, not a joke. You know he likes to mess around when it comes to the pictures on Media Day. So instead of the long dreads in every picture when the Heat are playing games on TNT and they show you his picture and his stats, or on ESPN, this year it's a picture with the flat hair and the earrings on his face, and the piercings, I guess I should say, on his face. Tyler Hero, he's going to get asked all the difficult questions, even though anything that happened or didn't happen this offseason was no fault of his own. So there should be a lot of good stuff for us to react to for the Heat tomorrow. The Marlins clinched the playoffs. We'll get to that. The Miami Dolphins. Very, very disappointing day yesterday. I actually did NFL Primetime yesterday on ESPN. I hosted ESPN Radio Primetime yesterday from 5 to 9 p.m. with two-time Super Bowl champion, former New York Giant great Brandon Jacobs, who I really enjoyed doing the show with. I didn't know him at all. And I thought we had a great time. I'm pretty sure he had a great time too. So we did 4 hours together, and that's a different kind of show doing prime time. It's not like we come to the table with, all right, here's what I want to talk about. Here's what we're going to do. This is my opinion here, this, that, whatever. We're giving opinions on everything, but it's a full-on NFL show. It's 4 straight hours of NFL, and it's a little bit like Red Zone because you're just bouncing around from game to game, talking about everything that's happening in real time. Now, granted, we were on during the 4 o'clock game, so We only had 3 games to react to at the time. That was Arizona, San Francisco, Dallas, New England, Vegas, and Los Angeles. But we're reacting to all of those. We're going game to game. We're getting reporters on and off the show, getting updates, and of course, recapping and talking about everything that took place in the 1 o'clock games, previewing Sunday Night Football, and looking ahead to tonight on Monday Night Football. So that was a different kind of experience. That was a lot of fun doing that show. And thanks to anyone who tuned in. If you're a loyal ZASLOW Show 2.0 listener and you're checking me out on the national level, I really appreciate that. And hey, I don't know, maybe we got some people who are regular ESPN radio listeners and they heard me on primetime yesterday and they're listening to the show right now. And so you're new to the program. I'll owe you a long time. And also a huge thank you to Amber Wilson, who I hosted with again on Friday nights. And so if you tuned into that, she is my favorite to do shows with. And the show was great, I thought. And she has done several times, actually. The last couple of weeks, she will promote my show while I'm on with her. Now, I don't do that otherwise, because it's like, I don't want the people on ESPN to feel, you know what, this is ESPN radio. We're not trying to promote other stuff that's going on, which I totally get. So I don't promote ZASLOW Show 2.0 on ESPN, even though I would love to bring some of those listeners over here with all of you listening. But Amber has been pretty straightforward about promoting my show the 2 times that I've done shows with her each of the last 2 weeks. And because what are they going to say to her? They're not going to say anything to her. So that's awesome. And obviously I'm really appreciative of that. So anyway, if you're new, I appreciate it. If you are a regular ZASLOW Show 2.0 listener and you've been joining me on ESPN Radio, you're awesome as well. All right, so let's get to it here. Now, look, all week long yesterday, I was telling you, Dolphins are going to go up to Buffalo. They're going to win that game. I felt great about the Dolphins going into the game. I did the show with Amber on Friday night, and she says how she's terrified of the game on Sunday. And why are you terrified? I'm not terrified at all, because terrified is when, you really don't think you have a chance. You think you're going to get killed. And of course, both those things ended up happening. But I'm not going to be terrified. As long as this is our current Dolphin team, I don't see a reason to be terrified going into any game. You can beat anyone. You're good enough to beat anyone. You're good enough to score against anyone. So there's no reason to be terrified. I feel every week with this Dolphin team that they have a good opportunity to win the game no matter who they're playing. And we go into Sunday, not just us here in South Florida. We're figuring this is the game of the day. Like, it's stupid that it's on at 1 o'clock. It should be on at 4 o'clock. And if it's not on at 4 o'clock, it should be the Sunday Night Football game. Now you understand why it's not the Sunday Night Football game, because even though when the schedule makers look before the season and pick out the games, you're pretty sure Dolphins-Bills is going to be a big deal. But Chiefs-Jets, with the expectation it's Rodgers versus Mahomes, yeah, that has to be Sunday Night Football. And we're not at the point of the season yet where you can flex games. So you get it in the early slate there, and it turned into one of those games where if it was on, if Bills-Dolphins was on in your market, by the fourth quarter, CBS switched you out of it. Like, that definitely happened on some markets, that they switched out of Dolphins and Bills and gave you a more competitive game. We thought we were going to be sitting there getting the popcorn ready, and it was a massive dud. And I also told you throughout the week, nothing's going to happen in this game where I feel like it's the same, if they lose, that it's the same old Dolphins. Now, I am really discouraged with the performance yesterday. Like, that was an extremely discouraging day for the Dolphin fan. I did not like what I saw, specifically from a physicality standpoint. The Dolphins got beat up on the line. Like, it's a really easy thing to say, right? Oh, the game's won in the trenches. It's a battle of the trenches. Well, it's kind of true yesterday. The Dolphins got beat up on both sides of the ball on the lines. The offensive line got beat up. The defensive line got beat up. Hey, if anyone has seen Christian Wilkins, let me know. I'd love to see him at some point. The Dolphins got manhandled the entire game. And okay, when the game is tied then at 14, you figure, all right, we got a shootout. Maybe not necessarily what you wanted, but at the same time, if you're a Dolphin fan, you're probably okay. And when I say not necessarily what you wanted, because you'd like the defense to show some signs of life, but if you're a Dolphin fan, you feel like you have the firepower to compete with Buffalo. But here's the thing that I think we learned yesterday with the Bills. Number one, and we're hoping that this happens for the Dolphins, right? When I say we're hoping it happens for the Dolphins, we're hoping that sometimes when you get punched in the mouth, it then allows you to look at yourself and you're able to go forward and take the next step. Dolphins got punched in the mouth yesterday. How they react to it is going to be a big deal. And I think the Bills went through this where in the first game of the season, right? In the first game of the season, the Bills go up to New York. You know it's a huge game because it's Aaron Rodgers. He then gets hurt 4 plays in, and you still wind up losing that game to the Jets. That was the Bills getting punched in the mouth. Josh Allen was terrible. Turnovers, bad decisions, and you see how the Bills have reacted. Matter of fact, you see what the Bills did last week in Washington. They beat the Commanders 37-3. The Commanders lost yesterday, so they've lost 2 in a row, and they're now 2-2. They lose to the Eagles in overtime. Commanders are a decent football team. And, I think we could see that now. Commanders are a decent football team. And the Bills beat the shit out of them, 37-3. And Buffalo, within the last 2 weeks, after getting punched in the face, week number 1 by the Jets, Buffalo now has responded with 3 straight wins. And in a game they had to have against the Dolphins. Because if the Bills lose that game, they fall 0-2 in the division. They're 2 back of the Dolphins. Dolphins are 2-0. 2-0 in the division. 2-game lead with the tiebreak over Buffalo, including week 18 in Miami to end the season. That game was more important for Buffalo. If they fall 2 games behind the Dolphins at this point and don't have the tiebreak, and the Dolphins' offense is what it is, and you also look at the Dolphins' upcoming schedule, that's a major hill for Buffalo to climb. So I'm discouraged with maybe I shouldn't say discouraged. I really did not like what I saw yesterday. We had no chance in that game in the second half. They cut the score to 31-20. I liked going for 2 actually there. I did. They cut the score 31-20 early in the third quarter. Hold them to a field goal 34-20. That right there was the moment, I looked at my son and say, have to score here. We score here, we're back in this game. Tua throws the interception. And then I looked at it and go, we're done, game over. That was the last moment in the game, early third quarter. Well, I guess it was mid-third quarter at this point. 34-20. Dolphins had to score on that possession. Tua airmailed the pass. I think it was intended for Smythe. Easy interception. That's your ball game. 2 more touchdowns tacked on by Buffalo. Done. First loss of the season. Now, same old Dolphins. There's no shame. They're not going to go undefeated. There's no shame in losing at Buffalo. A team that was favored and still is favored to win the AFC East, and a team that is a Super Bowl contender. They're not going undefeated. That's stupid. Losing in Buffalo is no shame. But if you're a Dolphin fan, you didn't want to lose like this. So that's why it's important for the Dolphins, after getting punched in the face, and they didn't get back up in that game yesterday. Now it's important, after getting punched in the face, how are you going to react the rest of the season? You got your shit kicked in. Maybe you thought your shit didn't stink, and now you know. If you didn't know, now you know. I think the Bills responded to their first loss in a major way and with MVP caliber quarterback play from Josh Allen. How the Dolphins respond from their first loss will determine whether or not they can actually win this division. That's the way it is. Whether the Dolphins can win this division, we will learn over the next few weeks. Now, the Dolphins' schedule over the next few weeks is super favorable. The next couple weeks, look at the games they have. Hosting the New York Giants next weekend. Saquon Barkley, he is doubtful tonight. Monday Night Football tonight's Giants and Seahawks. He's doubtful tonight. And then the week after that, winless Carolina Panthers. Both games are at home. So, like my son said to me after the game was over, like I looked at him and go, let me tell you something. It's so funny. If you're listening right now, if you're listening to ZASLOW Show 2.0, maybe you're around my age, you're a huge Miami sports fan like me, you're awesome, and you have a teenage son, maybe a teenage daughter. I say son because, if you're a male and I'm a male, like we're going to see ourselves in them. So you're watching the game with your son. And I'm watching with my son yesterday, and he's a disaster during the games. And I can only help but laugh to myself because he's a carbon copy of what I was at his age watching Dolphin games. And Heat games too. I was a disaster during Dolphin and Heat games at his age. When I was a teenager, I am a mess. I'm smashing the couch. I'm yelling at the television. I'm mother effing the players. My son is a disaster during the game. And you know what? I like it. I laugh to myself. I don't laugh out loud because that would be condescending. And the same way I wouldn't have liked that if my father did that, my son would not like that. So I keep it to myself, but I also don't get mad at his behavior because I get it. Now, he is going to have to get to a certain age where this behavior is unbecoming. And I got to that point. I was maybe like 21 when I realized I need to tone it down. My father made a comment to me, and it really struck a chord in myself where I need to look in the mirror and I need to take it down a notch during these games. And so I did. But right now, my older son is a carbon copy of my behavior when I was his age watching Dolphin games, and I like it. He's really into it. He's not like that with the Heat, although in the playoffs he is. With the Dolphins, though, and maybe it's because of the fantasy football, he's really into the NFL, super into trading cards. Maybe it's because of the gambling. I mean, look, the Zaslows like to gamble. What am I going to tell you? But he gets way into it, and I like it. So I think if you're listening out there, and you're a father of a teenage boy, like I said, or teenage girl, and they behave that way during games, and you were like that also, like I was. It's such an interesting experience to watch that. But the point is, I said to him once the game ended, I just looked over at him. He was so sour. I said, "You mad? You all right?" And he said, "No, it's fine. They weren't going to go undefeated." And I said, "You know what? That's a really mature attitude because the next couple games, they host the Giants, they host Carolina, and they should be 5-1. Now, if they're not 5-1, if they lose one of these two games, you should be really pissed off. Like as angry as you are, or if you are really angry after the loss yesterday, if they were to drop one of these next two games, that would be very concerning. Because that's why I'm not all in on the Dallas Cowboys being a Super Bowl contender. Why do I bring up the Cowboys? Well, the Cowboys were 2-0, looking fantastic. They'd outscored the two New York teams 70-10 the first two games. They go to Arizona, which we now learn Arizona's not an easy out. Arizona's not terrible. They lost again yesterday. Final score was not indicative of where that game was against San Francisco. Arizona is not terrible. Dallas at 2-0, they go to Arizona, they got their ass kicked. They lost by 2 touchdowns, and that was their first loss of the season. And while obviously one loss is no big deal, if you're a Super Bowl contender, if you want me to believe in you as a legit team, you can't go into Arizona if you're Dallas and lose that game, and lose the game the way you did. And so I'll carry that over to the Dolphins now, where if you're a legit Super Bowl contender, you just got punched in the face, how are you going to respond? The response better be at home, taking care of business, leave no doubt, against the Giants and the Panthers. There's no shame. It sucks that they lost by 4 touchdowns. Still only counts as 1 loss. But there's no shame losing at Buffalo. Losing to the Giants, losing to the Panthers, that would be shameful. That will be when, ZASLOW, are you concerned? Like, did yesterday concern you? I'm really disappointed about yesterday. But overall, I'm not concerned about the Dolphins because a loss is a loss. If they were to lose one of these next 2 games, matter of fact, if they were to lose any of the games that they should win, you look up and the Dolphins' schedule, look, the Dolphins' schedule in a few weeks is going to really soften up. You have the Giants and Carolina. That's why you got to win those 2 games. You're 5-1 because then you go to Philadelphia. We know that's going to be a super difficult game Sunday Night Football. Then you're at home against New England. By the way, Mac Jones, worst quarterback in the NFL. I've been telling you that. Then they go to Germany against Kansas City. And then the schedule really softens up. But like any of these games, at home against Vegas, at the Jets, if you lose any of those games like that, Carolina, New York Giants, that would be concerning because a Super Bowl team, a Super Bowl contending team, especially at home, will take care of business. So I'm really interested in what the Dolphins look like, how they respond over the next couple of weeks. Now, the only thing enjoyable about the game yesterday was, I'm sitting on the couch in the ZASLOW Mansion family room. I was not in my underwear. I'm just enjoying the game with a Johnny Cuba in my hand. You guys know what I'm talking about. Johnny Cuba, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0. By the way, we were at the event on Friday night. Great crowd. I was telling you guys about it at the Diadem Pickleball Complex at Broward College in Coconut Creek. Johnny Cuba sponsored it. Great event on Friday. My son, my wife, they were playing pickleball. Place was packed. We were drinking Johnny Cuba's 2 for 1. They had pizza there. Really great event. If you haven't tried Johnny Cuba yet, official beer of ZASLOW Show 2.0, I don't know what you're waiting for. You can pick up a 6-pack of Johnny Cuba at your local Sedano's, Presidente, Winn-Dixie, Fresco y Mas. And then when you're making your first pour, send me a video or take a picture. I then post it on my stories on Instagram. I'm an influencer, all right? So you then become famous when I post that. My man Juan, he loves that. It was great seeing him, his family, his wife Myra, Johnny Cuba. The whole crew was out there on Friday night. Remember, when you're drinking a Johnny, always want to drink responsibly. And of course, don't forget Johnny Cuba's mantra, stay tranquilo. Great event on Friday night. I had an eventful weekend. It was just such a bummer that we're looking forward to Sunday. We're looking forward to 1 p.m. and 14-14. Okay, we got a shootout here. Who is going to be the first team to make a stop? And the Bills make a stop, but then the Dolphins make a stop right after. And then the wheels fall off. But this defense was manhandled. Christian Wilkins, Bradley Chubb, no-shows. And I was saying yesterday, I sent out a tweet, you know who does nothing? Bradley Chubb. And, I get some responses. The whole defense is doing nothing. Yes, of course that's true. But the whole defense is not signed to, the richest contract ever. Bradley Chubb was brought here to make big plays in big moments. Now, he did in week 2, the game against New England. He was awesome. He had big sack. He had the strip from behind to force the fumble. He's made plays this year. But a game like yesterday, can you do something? Christian Wilkins. Look, Christian Wilkins held out of the preseason. Missing yesterday. Where's Christian Wilkins? I understand the whole defense was a no-show. Van Ginkel did his thing. He's a stud. I love watching him. But guys who need to make plays were nowhere to be found. Xavier Howard. Okay. We didn't hear Xavier Howard's name called but once, late in the game, because they're not throwing in his direction. Why isn't Xavier Howard on Stephon Diggs? Now, I understand some cornerbacks don't like to switch sides of the field. They're not going to chase the receiver all over the place. They're going to play on one side. So if that's the case, maybe Stephon Diggs, he lines up on the other side. Kader Kohu Kohu's been really good this year. He got killed yesterday. I can't even blame him. Stephon Diggs is awesome. And Cater Coe is a second-year cornerback and realistically our third best cornerback on this team. I'm not going to get on Cater Coe. You know, he's trying to do his thing out there, and he is outmatched by one of the best in Stephon Diggs. But I don't understand. And this, look, I'm not arrogant enough to not be able to tell you that I know what I don't know. So like I said, is Xavier Howard one of those cornerbacks that doesn't switch sides of the field, so he's not going to guard Stephon Diggs? Maybe, but it's like, why isn't he guarding Stephon Diggs? It really feels like that simple to me. Why isn't he covering Diggs if he is killing us and killing Cater Coe all afternoon? And for the first time this season, the offense was also manhandled. Going into the game yesterday, 1 sack allowed, and 2 had been hit like twice. Like twice. Yesterday, 4 sacks. Every time he goes down, you keep your fingers crossed. Like, thank God. Can you put the camera back on Tua? I don't even care if there was a completion. Can you put the camera back on Tua so I can see if he got up? He did. He's doing his jiu-jitsu. He knows how to get up now. But sacked 4 times. He was hit like 8 or 9 times. Tua was pressured, and it made a major difference. It reminded me of, you know, like in those 2 Super Bowls when the Giants beat the Patriots. How do you beat Tom Brady? You have to pressure him. You have to hit him. And Tua's not mobile. He can scoot a little bit, but he is not evading pressure. And you pressure Tua. We saw the formula yesterday. You pressure Tua. If you get to him, it will slow down this offense. And it's not like Tua was bad yesterday. I mean, the interception obviously ended up sealing the game late in the third quarter. But for the first time in 4 games, this offensive line was manhandled. Liam Eichenberg, he fucking sucks. Teron Armstead, he got hurt. But you know what? Kendall Lamb, he was really good in the preseason. I'm not too concerned about that, especially because it's not to his blind side. I mean, missing Teron Armstead is obviously a big deal, but we know what comes with Teron Armstead. He's going to miss games. Liam Eichenberg is such a bum. Anyway, sometimes my biggest takeaway, or at least the way that I'm looking at it now, sometimes you need to get punched in the mouth to take that next step. And that's what you're hoping for if you're a Miami Dolphin fan. It was a major opportunity for the Dolphins, but instead, the Bills still run this division. For now. For now. The Bills are our daddies. Josh Allen is 10-2. I think Tua is 1-6. Josh Allen is 10-2 against the Dolphins. They're our daddies. And it sucks because they were our daddies back in the 90s when it was Kelly versus Marino. Those Dolphin teams that were contenders, the Bills were always our daddies. And this Dolphin team that's a contender, the Bills are still our daddies until they're not. And that part is really frustrating.